Last Tuesday was Shrove Tuesday, Pancake Day. And you may well have been deciding what to have on your pancakes during the season of Lent. I'm sure that many of you, like me, will have had childhood memories of giving up sweets or chocolate during Lent. And it always fascinates me that people who don't really claim to have a faith recognize the season of Lent. It seems to have become a British tradition as well as a Christian observance. And when people decide to join in and give something up, interestingly, quite a few of them these days go to very modern things like social media, justifying it as taking on a challenge which will be good for their character. Challenges are good for us. And there's perhaps no greater challenge than offering yourself for a life of public service. It places you in that unenviable position of being able to please some of the people some of the time, but not all of the people all of the time, which was very much the position that Jesus found himself in too, as he was increasingly criticized by Jewish leaders of the temple who felt that he was challenging their authority. So with that theme of challenge in mind, let us offer our prayers for the many challenges that you are facing at this time as you make your decisions for Tameside. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance and support as our councillors begin this meeting. Help them to engage in meaningful discussion as they nurture and develop the many and varied bonds of this, our community. Lord, we pray for our schools, our hospital, our clinics, and our emergency services. We pray for all who serve in these organisations, particularly those working long hours under extreme pressure and challenging circumstances. Keep them, good Lord, under the shadow of your mercy in these times of uncertainty and distress. Lord Jesus Christ, you taught us to love our neighbour as ourselves. We give thanks for all those people from our community who face the daily challenges of those in need by volunteering their services to support and care for them, either by fundraising, by collecting food and clothing, by being a listening ear or a shoulder on which to lean. We offer a prayer of thanksgiving for the life and service of Lord Tom Pendry, who served Stalybridge and Hyde in Parliament for many years. May he rest in peace and rise in glory. And finally, we pray today for each and every person in this borough, for our mayor and his consort, and for the leader and officials of this council. Give them the strength they need to do the work to which they have been called. Grant them the wisdom to meet the challenges that they face in these difficult times in supporting this wonderfully diverse borough. Give them the wisdom and courage to fight for what is right, honest, and good. I offer these prayers in the name of Jesus Christ and invite those of you who feel able to do so to join me in the prayer that Jesus taught. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Councillor Martin? Yes. Okay. Right. So, announcements. It is with deep regret that I have to open my remarks with news of the death of Lord Pendry of Stalybridge. But many people in this chamber will have known him just as Tom, the former MP for Stalybridge and Hyde. He died on Sunday night, aged 88. He was first elected for Stalybridge and Hyde in 1970 and went on to serve for 31 years. In that time, he served as a shadow government minister, but always had time to help the public. I'm sure that's why he was re-elected 7 times and went on to become the constituency's longest serving MP. His chief love, of course, was sport. He was an amateur boxer of no mean ability, loved his football, and for many years was president of the Football Foundation, when he helped clubs at all levels, not least our own Hyde United and Stalybridge Celtic. Lord Pendry was a great servant, not only to Stalybridge and Hyde, but to this borough as a whole. He will be greatly missed, and I extend the sympathies of this council to his children, Dominic and Fiona, and to his wider family. Could I ask you now to stand and join me in a minute's silence in his memory? Thank you. Please be seated. So, on to the more general announcement. 4 days ago, the first anniversary of Vladimir Putin's illegal and brutal attack on Ukraine, I was proud to lead the borough here at Duckenfield Town Hall in observing the national 1-minute silence to reflect on what has happened over the last year and to pay tribute to the courage of the Ukrainian people who have suffered grievously as they have fought to repel the Russian invasion. I was also delighted to welcome Steve and Jackie Goodison in the Mayor's Parlour. They have raised a staggering sum of £200,000 to find homes in our borough for 40 Ukrainian refugees. The Ukrainian Christmas concert was one of the many events I attended at the turn of the year, including the civic carol service at St Michael's Church, Ashton, light switch-ons, Willowwood Hospice's Garden of 1,000 Lights, and the parties and lunches organised by Hattersley Hub, Star Over 55s, the Friends of Tameside Young Carers, the Grafton Centre at Hyde, St Peter's Community Gathering in Ashton, among others. Other events I have attended included the Alex Williams Charity Concert, a British Empire Medal investiture ceremony at Gorton Monastery, and birthday celebrations for Avi Axon, who reached the incredible age of 104. It was also a pleasure to entertain Stamford Park Trust Estates Manager Chris Ashwood, Tyneside's lone recipient of the King's New Year Honour, where he was awarded the British Empire Medal for his sterling work at Ashton Sixth Form College during the COVID lockdowns. I also attended arts presentations, a graduation ceremony at Tameside College, the opening of the new library at the Great Academy, the Armchair Adventures installation extravaganza at the Stalybridge Civic Hall, and a junior mayor assembly at Greenfield Academy in Hyde. To mark Holocaust Memorial Day, last month, I was grateful for the chance to see the thought-provoking Anne Frank arts installation created by our 6 special schools in collaboration with the Council's arts team. Finally, in the weeks before Christmas, it was great to join my fellow Greater Manchester mayors at the National Football Museum in Manchester, where we met an array of the Lionesses past and present at a women's football reception linked to the Crossing the Line exhibition and the England success in winning last summer's European Championships. In conclusion, I would like to voice my usual thanks to the people who have helped me, the Mayoress Anne, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Tafeen Sharif, the Mayor's office here at Tameside Council, and you yourselves. I now hand you over to the Chair of Council Business, Councillor Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please be seated. We'll move on to agenda item 2, which is the council minutes. I ask Councillor Cooney to move those, please. Are they seconded? Any questions or comments? Are you happy to move them? Yeah. I'll sign those minutes. Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Hopefully you've all signed your papers to allow you to speak in the budget and take part in it. Is there any other declarations by them? No? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 5, communications or announcements. Councillor Cooney.
On our plans and priorities for the next financial year. In the midst of recent chaos and uncertainty, we are putting the wheels in motion to continue delivering for Tameside in 2023 and beyond. In particular, I'm happy to declare that, in line with a number of other Greater Manchester councils, we are making good on our commitment to financially support our social care workers. But we intend to go further still by supplementing this with the development of a new carers strategy for Tameside, ensuring that the many unpaid and informal carers in the borough also have their views consulted, respected and included in any decision that affect them going forward. The continuing struggle against the cost of living crisis is one of the most pressing issues we face. I resolve to build upon the excellent work already taking place in Tameside by expanding the ways that residents in need can access services through retaining face-to-face access points, refreshing the council's website and building on our borough-wide free Wi-Fi and helping hand schemes. Early next month, we will also deliver our new and comprehensive Tackling Poverty in Tameside strategy, laying out in detail how we, in cooperation with our partners through the local Health and Wellbeing Board, intend to fight poverty and its causes in Tameside in the years to come. As part of this, we are committed both publicly and privately to make the case to ministers and civil servants for rolling back legislation that we believe is unjust, damaging to our residents and our country as a whole. This includes, and may not be limited to, permanently ending the no-fault evictions, reinstating the £20 top-up of the universal credit and abolishing the bedroom tax, the two-child limit and the benefit cap. Through close collaboration with Ofsted and partners, we proceed with our agreed Children's Services Improvement Plan and develop our new offer further through the delivery of the family hubs and the Best Start for Life programmes in each of our 4 neighbourhoods. Early intervention for young people in special education needs and disabilities will be addressed through a new adolescent hub and the establishment of the new SEND school base that's Hawthorns. Our ambition is to develop our town centres and wider public realm remains unwavering. In addition to our plans for Ashton Town Hall and the Market Square and Ashton Moss and St Petersfield and the mayoral development zones, Stainley Bridge Civic Hall Trolls and Denton and High Grove triangles, we will undertake a parking review and deliver a new cultural strategy to maximise the footfall and engagement. Working side by side with the Mayor of Greater Manchester, Transport for Greater Manchester and our neighbouring local authorities, we will support the full and rapid delivery of the new bus franchising model, while also supporting other plans to revolutionise public transport in and around Tameside, such as the Rochdale, Oldham and Ashton bus corridor. Supporting our local economy to drive sustainable investment and inclusive growth has become more important than ever. Therefore, we are committed to maximising council spending with Tameside-based businesses, charities and voluntary organisations, community groups, wherever possible. We will also work closely with suppliers to unlock the social value through volunteering work, experience and apprenticeships as a matter of course within our procurement process. As well as this, we will expand our opportunities for residents within our world of work or move in their current careers through schemes such as Routes to Work, employment support, in-work progress and Kickstart. We want Tameside to be a place that all our residents can be proud of. Making sure that our streets are clean, green and safe is an indispensable part of making that a reality. Our community safety efforts will be strengthened by a new strategy to tackle antisocial behaviour and engaging with the Mayor and the Greater Manchester Police to get more police officers on our streets. We will be tireless in our efforts to tackle potholes and bring the full force of the law to bear whenever possible on fly tippers, as well as providing support for our streets campaigns and community clean-ups. In order to play our part in ending violence against women and girls in Tameside Council is actively seeking a white ribbon accreditation and provide help to those suffering from domestic abuse through the Take Control campaign. It is true that we are living through unprecedented difficult times. As elected representatives, we need to be honest, transparent with our residents about the challenges we face. But at the same time, we also must leave them with no doubt that our ambition and aspiration for Tameside remains undimmed. The priorities I have laid out, when combined with a solid foundation provided by the budget that Councillor North is due to present shortly, will form our blueprint to ensure that no matter what happens in Westminster or anywhere else in the world, Tameside will strive not to just survive, but to thrive. This is our last council before all the elections, and I would like to thank all those retiring but not restanding for election, and for their commitment and significant contributions to Tameside. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of the announcements. Agenda item 6, which is the council's big conversation. We have received a question from a member of the public. It's from Trevor Clark to Councillor Cooney as follows. As a board member of Jigsaw Homes Group, will you be aware that the group made a surplus after tax of £17 million in the 6 months up to the 30th of September 2022? Given that, would you confirm that you will raise the issue of widening and speeding up Jigsaw Homes' programme of installation retrofitting in its properties in Tameside at the next board meeting of Jigsaw Homes Group, as this would help residents feel warmer and healthier, reduce residents' energy bills and reduce CO2 emissions? Would he also report back to full council on the response to this intervention? Councillor Cooney to respond.
Yeah, Chair. What I will do is I'll email the question directly to the Chief Exec and ask for a response to that, so the recipient will receive that, but also hopefully they've responded by the next full council, which is the AGM. I don't know whether we can deal with it there, but hopefully. Now, if beforehand we get it beforehand, I'm willing to actually circulate that to all members of the council rather than wait to the next the AGM. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cooney. We'll now move on to agenda item 2, the joint meeting of Exit Cabinet. That's for the meetings on 14th of December and the 25th of January. Please note that I will not be taking any financial questions on this item. They can wait for the budget which follows this. Councillor Cooney, to move.
We're on 7, aren't we, Chair?
Yes.
The minutes of the Executive Cabinet held on the 14th of December 2022 and the 25th of January 23, and the joint meetings of the Executive Cabinet and Overview Panel held on the 8th of February 2023 be received and the recommendations approved.
Law seconded.
Second those minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on these? No? Are you all in favour that we accept those then? Minutes, thank you. Now move over to item 8, the budget. Can I ask Councillor North to propose the budget, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members and officers of the Council, we can be under no illusions about the challenges we face after 13 years of Conservative government. A government who in the last 12 months has not only compounded years of austerity and the waste of billions during COVID, but has gone still further with its ill-conceived and unresourced economic experiments. Their management has left us as the only G7 country with GDP growth still below pre-pandemic levels and sent the cost of government borrowing rocketing. During the past year, their economic mismanagement has forced us to contend with a cost of living crisis, with inflation at its highest for 40 years. Residents wondering how high the next weekly shop will be. Can they put the heating or lighting on, put petrol in the car, or pay the rent or mortgage? Stagnating wages and rising inflation have pushed many of our residents to beyond their financial breaking point, impoverishing our society here in Tameside and putting significant extra demand upon council services as we step in and provide help to those who need it. The government, of course, claims that they have increased local government spending this year, but let's be clear. The largest component of a local council's funding is government support grants, and despite inflation above 10%, Tameside Council's net spending power from 2022-2023 has only increased by 6.3%. Since 2010-11, the cumulative impact of austerity has slashed Tameside's real-term spending power by almost 24%. This equates to a £688 a year reduction for every household in the borough. When the impact of all this is considered and measured, we estimate that the council will have to manage almost £40 million worth of additional economic and service pressures over the next financial year. It is abundantly clear that the government is passing the burden for its catastrophic economic policies onto local taxpayers. The government has once again failed to implement their fair funding review for local government, failed to fund pay increases, failed to deal with adult social care, and failed to properly implement their levelling up agenda. In the absence of proper and equitable government support, the only way to plug this gap is to raise council tax and look at yet more innovative ways to deliver services at lower costs. I am therefore announcing tonight that Tameside's budget for the next financial year will include a requirement to achieve a further £20 million worth of budget reductions and efficiencies and a 4.99% increase in council tax and adult social care precept for 2023-2024. This means that typical Band A properties, which constitute the largest share of Tameside's housing stock, will pay an extra £1.06 per week in total. For larger Band D properties, the increase will be £1.59 a week. We believe that this will raise an extra £5 million in funding, which when combined with £15 million of other income from sources such as the new homes bonus, will deliver a balanced and legal budget. No councillor in the land can ever be happy with the prospect of raising taxes on residents in the midst of a cost of living crisis. But if we wish to continue protecting and delivering the services we are legally obliged to provide, including care for children and adults, waste collection and road maintenance, then we are truly left with no choice. The government is relying on councils to make this choice. Almost a quarter of the increased funding for adult social care is expected to come from the 2% rise in the social care precept. Again, the government is choosing to place the burden on the backs of Tameside's residents. Local authorities across the country, including those in Greater Manchester, are grappling with the same impossible choices and reaching the same conclusions. I hope that Conservative members and our Green Party member will join us in demanding of the government greater long-term investment and a move away from the endless and costly round of beauty contests for pots of money, for the implementation of the Fairer Funding Review and for multi-year settlements, enabling long-term financial strategic choices to be made on the delivery and design of services across Tameside. I will continue to make the case in every way I can to government that supplying us with the money that we need to fund our services in full is not only the right thing to do, but the necessary thing as well. The alternative that we have lived with for over a decade of forcing councils to pass the financial burden onto local taxpayers is as unjust as it is unsustainable going forward. Despite this, Tameside residents are right to expect a return on the money they are giving to us. Despite the difficulties we face, I am confident that the budget presented here today will put us on a firm and sustainable footing moving forwards. Cuts to frontline services will be minimal, and any additional income we raise will be reinvested into supporting those who need our help the most. We believe that clapping for carers was never enough, and I am particularly happy to declare that this budget allocates funding to make good on our commitment to pay all social care workers the real living wage of £10.90 an hour as a minimum from April onwards. This is not only the right thing to do for our care workers, but it will help to protect an increasingly fragile market. We know what a well-financed local authority can achieve in terms of a positive impact on local economies, on health and well-being, on the environment and education. So constantly hammering local government has a clearly negative impact across the board, which simply increases pressures on other public services. This budget, when combined with the areas of focus outlined by Councillor Cooney, will form our blueprint for Tameside over the next financial year. It is true that we are in the midst of the gravest financial crisis this country has faced since its recovery from the Second World War. This crisis, however, was created and nurtured in number 10 Downing Street and will get progressively worse until the occupants are removed at a general election. It is true that weathering the storm will require hard decisions that in an ideal world we would all prefer not to make. But none of this can be an excuse for despair or inaction. We will not let our residents down in their time of need. We will make the difficult decisions and seek out improvement opportunities which benefit all Tameside residents. We will not be found gambling on the property market with people's monies. We will not direct the council taxes of residents into the hands of friends and supporters, unlike this government. But we will deliver a foundation upon which Tameside will be well placed to take advantage of an economic upturn when that happens under a new government. It is in this spirit of realism and resolve that I commend this budget to the Council and would ask that the budget for 2023-2024 set out in the previously circulated report and the amount of council tax for the Council's area for 2023-2024 as set out on the tabled supplementary report be approved. Thank you.
Can I ask Councillor Cooney to second it?
I'll formally second that, Chair.
Thank you. Could I ask then if any member wishes to put forward an alternative budget that has been signed off by the Section 151 officer? If not, then cannot be an alternative budget, but will consider an amendment to those proposals. Anyone wish to do that? Nope. Can I then ask Councillor Billington to move the amendment?
So I was actually quite looking forward to Councillor North's budget tonight because I have a lot of respect for her. But it turned out to be a lot of going on about national government rather than the priorities for Tameside, so I am disappointed on that. So what I want to say is it's another year, another tax rise with no progress on improving the lives of our residents. It truly feels like we've been stuck in Groundhog Day for the past 45 years that Labour have run this council. What I will say is, though, that I must commend Councillor North for not presenting an overly flash budget on promises where there's no intention on delivering them. I do think that the council is turning a corner. However, from the wasted 4 years under Councillor Warrington's dismal leadership, I do feel that Councillor Cooney is listening, but we need the drive to deliver for our residents. Although it may sound unfair to be critical when the current leader has only been in post for the past year, there's no getting away from the fact that several people on the Cabinet, including the leader, have held posts in previous failed administrations. Under the last administration, the headcount and budget in the Growth Department doubled to £40 million under Councillor Oliver Ryan. Has that led to a doubling of outside investment or more jobs created? No, it hasn't. What's more obscene is that despite more staffing growth, there is still a heavy reliance on calling in big outside consultants with hefty fees, with some reports costing £350,000 a pop. Now, I've read these reports, and they state the obvious. You could ask anyone in Tameside what they think, and they'll all come back with the same ideas and suggestions. We're paying for common sense. But what isn't common sense is to commission expensive reports and then say you haven't got the money to implement them. It's like going to a car dealership. You spec out the car with your salesman, you place your deposit. Only when the car is ready do you say that you can't afford it for you to then lose your deposit. You could say you've made this mistake once, but you keep on rinsing and repeating this over and over again. You only have to look around our town centre to see that nothing is happening. You say that Ashton Town Centre is the capital of Tameside, but it's an absolute dump. It's filthy and desolate. Just what is happening with Ashton Town Hall? Nearly £20 million has been awarded from the Levelling Up Fund, but we are yet to see any meaningful progress. But what we do know is that Angela Rayner is to get a brand new office paid for by the council in Ashton Town Hall when her office is just a few paces in the Ashton Market Hall. But what's wrong with the Tameside One council offices when one report stated that 2/3 of the brand new office that we've spent £66 million on, 2/3 of it remains empty. And we was told that that would bring staff together rather than have them spread out across buildings across the borough. But if Ashton is the capital, we have Staley Bridge, which should be the jewel in Tameside's crown. Since I was councillor, we've had a number of plans devised on what the town centre should look like. Has anything been done to put it into practice, like developing a local plan that would protect the character of the town or ensure safeguards that promote good local businesses to invest? No. We have another talking shop headed up by Councillor David Sweeton. The old market hall, like almost every other building, is being left to rot and decay. Every day that the Civic Hall roof is left unrepaired presents a greater structural risk to our treasured market hall. And what will happen then? Will the council say that there isn't enough money, so we'll tear it down like you're planning to do with Hyde Library? The council will complain that it doesn't receive Levelling Up funds for these projects, but you've already had over £1.5 million as part of the Heritage Action Zone for Staley Bridge. Part of that money was meant to get the Market Hall roof finally fixed, but yet again we hear the same excuses, and given that over £600,000 has been spent on Market Street public realm works, you could hardly tell the difference. Nearly 4 years have passed since the money was awarded, and we have nothing to show for it. You can't blame COVID or Brexit like you always do, as other councils have been able to manage and deliver their grants just fine. When this council does get grants, it fritters it away with nothing to show for it. No wonder the government is hesitant to give you more money. In terms of job creation across the borough, our job density is falling even further. We are already by far the lowest performer in terms of the number of jobs in Tameside per head of population. This is a damning indictment of the Growth Department's failure to attract and create jobs. The stats produced by TFGM and GMCA state that 77% of people in Tameside use their car to get to work. Is it any wonder when there are more jobs out of the borough? You want people to use their car less, but imagine being a parent having to juggle getting your kids to school and then having to travel to get to work on time on the other side of Greater Manchester. What we see in Tameside is that we have some of the lowest paid in Greater Manchester, often working in retail, warehousing or manufacturing. These jobs don't have the same degree of flexibility on hours or home working that a council pen pusher has. I honestly don't think the officers who come up with these reports live in the real world. The council wants to progress with Godley Green, a scheme that will likely add over 4,000 cars to the road on an already busy A57. And what's the answer to this? To tell people to get on their bikes. And on cycling, there's over 8.4 million of capital planned to deliver cycle lanes in the borough, whereas there's nearly a quarter of that.
Councillor Billington, could you just wait on for 1 second, please? Yeah. You've been speaking for over 5 minutes. You have not mentioned the amendment, which a lot of the council members haven't got in front of them. So I suggest you put the amendment to the council.
I will get to the amendment at the end.
I'll ask you to do it now, please. Or I'll read it for you, whichever.
You read it for me.
Okay, I will do. This is the amendment. Agree to non-frontline savings proposed, that the council should not increase council tax by 2.9.9. Instead, the Growth Department should be restructured to go back towards the 2017 levels of spending. A reduction in spending on non-estate public health projects such as smoking cessation and telling people what they should and shouldn't eat, and redirect that money towards providing spaces in women's refuge and tackling addiction. Commit to the 2% increase ring-fenced for adult social care, 1% increase in council tax to fund additional resources for street cleansing, enforcement, in licensing and planning, development of a new local plan to protect our environment, and ensure reasonable development that improves and regenerates our town. That is your amendment. Yes. 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 I have not said he cannot continue. I asked him to read what the amendment was because he didn't want the elected members to know. So then, excuse me, I'm not having any more interruptions. Continue, Councillor Billington.
You've interrupted yourself.
I'm the chair, I can interrupt you. Okay? Continue, please.
I'll start from the paragraph. So the council wants to progress with Godley Green, a scheme that will likely add over 4,000 cars to the road on an already busy A57. And what's the answer to this? To tell people to get on their bikes. And on cycling, there is over £8.4 million of planned capital spend to deliver cycle lanes in the borough, where there's only nearly a quarter of that, with £2.4 million of capital for our roads. Is this really a priority for residents in Tameside? What we need is a joined-up plan that regenerates our brownfield sites with affordable homes and local jobs for local people. And if people don't comply with the proposed cycling plans, they will be hit by the Mayor's proposed workplace parking levy after he failed to push through his CAS. And be warned, where the Conservatives campaigned against the CAS, we will also campaign against this workplace parking levy that would seek to damage local jobs. It's clear that despite the added investment into growth, it hasn't worked, and we need to roll back this spending. A report from the Growth Department branded Ashton Town Centre as not fit for purpose, but with a spiralling budget, lack of delivery, and an over-reliance on outside consultants, you have to ask, is the Growth Department fit for purpose? The Conservative group thinks that it isn't, and therefore in our amendment, we will seek that the department is restructured and brought back in line with 2017 levels of spending. On the Estates and Capital programme, it isn't moving quickly enough. By now, the council should have sold over £30 million of assets to fund projects in the borough. But what really gets me is the amount of money we are spending on security with private firms. How is it that security at Two Trees costs £100,000 a year when all that seems to be done is a heap of sand in front of the gates? There's no on-site security or CCTV, so what exactly are we paying for? The same could be said for Hyde Library, which I believe is costing £90,000 a year in security. For the amount that has been spent on security over the years, we could have maintained the buildings and got a greater return on our assets. But this is typical of the council. A lack of foresight, throw money at the wrong things, and when the money runs out, blame someone else. Another area that the Conservative group would seek to address is public health. It simply isn't working. Now that COVID is out of the public's mind, they have reverted back to form with the finger wagging, telling people what they can eat, drink, or do in the privacy of their bedroom. A recent report in the Manchester Evening News highlighted that 70% of Tameside residents were either overweight or obese. Despite the Public Health Department having a budget of £5.8 million, it doesn't have the desired effect in bringing that down. People don't want to be lectured into what they can do, and if their advice was so good, councillors would be following suit and we'd all look like Twiggy, and I do include myself in that. I am proposing that the council scraps public health and instead channels that money to create a department for public protection that covers community safety, tackle antisocial behaviour, domestic violence and addiction. The new department would work in tandem with Place, Adults and Children's. This would deliver on the priorities for Tameside residents. The council is failing to deliver on the basics. Our streets are filthy, bins go unemptied, roads riddled with potholes. This is the bread and butter of services that a council should be able to deliver, but this Labour-run council doesn't. Although I do agree with a number of spending restraints proposed by the First Deputy for Finance, Resources and Transformation, I feel that interfering with overtime on street cleaning teams to save £30,000 is bordering on ridiculous when really we should be putting more into street cleansing. It really is a question of priorities. Do we continue to fund the failing pen pushers who pump out so-called consultations and outsource a lot of their work to consultancy firms? Or do we put the priorities of residents first by creating a green, clean and safe environment that our residents can be proud of and businesses feel confident in investing in? I was going to read the amendment, but Councillor Kitchen has so kindly done that for me before, so thank you. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Councillor Billington. Is that seconded? That's been seconded. Could I ask for questions or comments on the amendment only, not the substantious one? Any questions or comments on the amendment only? If anyone? Councillor North.
Amendment. I do wonder whether you've checked the financial viability of your amendment with the Section 151 officer, because only when that's done do we know whether it'll actually add up. The first point you said, so I'm not quite sure, agree to the non-frontline savings proposed. So if you're not agreeing to the frontline savings, then again that would have to be checked with the Section 151 officer. The public health one is an interesting concept. I'm not sure whether you're aware, but since 2013, local governments have received a government grant that must be spent on providing a range of public health services, such as interventions to tackle teenage pregnancy, child obesity, whether you claim that's telling somebody what they can help or not, eat or not, sexually transmitted infections and substance misuse. The grant is actually ring-fenced and must be spent on the service areas specified in the grant rules. And any changes to that would be challengeable under judicial review, so it's not something we could actually do. In terms of the increase or not in the council tax, I would point out that it seems to go contrary to current government policy in that we're being expected to increase the council tax by 2.99% and ASCP by the adult social care premium by 2%. And it's central to the uplift that the government talks about, the 9%, 9.3% uplift. It includes that rise in council tax. I would point out that boroughs like Croydon and Slough and Thurrock have been granted dispensation by the government to go beyond the 3%. And I think Croydon are going for something like 15%. The growth department, I mean, all departments are subject to review and revision. Obviously, growth is important to us all. It's a central core of this government's policies. But as I say, it's not to say that we wouldn't at any time look at what our growth department is achieving. We have got the £20 million worth of levelling up funding and UK shared prosperity funding. So we can look at that, but to simply say that that will enable you to spend money elsewhere really doesn't add up. And the final thing about the only putting the council tax up by 1%, I think misunderstands the budget to a degree, because given the funding constraints and all the emerging economic and social pressures we're facing, they have hypothecated grant system, there is no growth within this overall 2023-24 budget for substantive service improvements. So to redirect some £1 million to elsewhere would mean a cut, a substantial cut in services somewhere else within this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment on the amendments only? Councillor.
Obviously public transport, but the active leisure needs to be made available to people who are just too nervous to cycle on the road. So there's no way I'm going to agree with that. That's the specific thing that I've got. You know, that's something that I've got particular interest in and knowledge of. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Goslin. Coming up on here. Councillor Ryan then.
Approach to setting this budget, but actually I wonder if he's read the budget. We've had massive cuts every year for this authority for the last 13 years. And that hugely inhibits your ability to do anything every year, having to come here and make year-on-year cuts we've spoken about before. I see what he says about low pay, and I ask when he's going to ask his government to tackle this and talk about the real living wage, or talk about the minimum wage, or talk about the wages of workers outside of this borough and across Greater Manchester who are not paid enough because of the policies of his government, who want to drive wages down and promote the gig economy. It doesn't work for Tameside, and I'm ashamed actually that he's promoting it for Stalybridge and Tameside. He mentions no council tax increase, which is recurrent every year, so he's not only not explained how much he wants to fill that gap by this year, but recurrently for every year going on. Perhaps Councillor North can offer him a finance lesson after this. He said no growth. I didn't realise that when Liz Truss did a speech last year about the anti-growth coalition, she actually meant Liam Billington. But But it's unfortunate that that's what it's unfortunate that's what he's come to define himself as. The Tameside Trump, as we say. No smoking cessation, no educational facilities, no public health matters about obesity. I mean, I'm all for having fun, but I think there's a level at which public health becomes important in Tameside. And it's for us as a council to help promote healthiness of our residents, partly because it saves the authority and it saves the health service money across the long term. So I disagree with him, actually. And then he said quite interestingly he wants to ensure the development and regeneration of Tameside, but then talked about how he wants to cut the growth budget, doesn't want to apply for anything in particular at any point, doesn't want to use outside consultants to run applications where we've won tens of millions of pounds in future. It seems unfortunate that he goes on to mention things like security and roads and the costs of these things over the long term. But actually what he fails to mention is that Council North has got to fill in tens of millions of pounds worth of government cuts every year. And he's not got an answer or solution to that. So as much as he might try and play the politics, I think it's quite unfortunate. I came into this meeting, Chair, thinking I was probably slightly overweight and defining myself by Councillor Billington's definition, and I leave it recalling myself as Twiggy. So probably for the last time, Chair, with that as a final word, I say thank you very much.
Councillor Holland, you wish to speak?
To the national issue. To start at the beginning, around about 25% of our income has been taken off us year by the Tories, and we were asked to do more with less. That is a fact. There's no ifs or buts about it, because the Prime Minister, the one you've got now, was heard bragging about it when he was trying to beat Truss in the election in the Tory shires, when he said, I've taken money from the inner cities and I've given it to the Tory shires. In the last 3 or 4 years, I mean, it's been an absolute shambles. How any Tory can stand up and talk about financial probity? He must have more front than Blackpool, Councillor Billington. The fact is that you've wrecked the housing market. The dream of owning your own home has almost disappeared for most people. You actually, which was an absolute disgrace, wrecked the pension market, where people have spent 30 and 40 years building up a pension, and to do that was absolutely appalling. But perhaps, to go back to the national level, we have a Prime Minister who asked a guy at a food bank, are you in business? A rough sleeper, are you in business? That's how out of touch his Tory leadership is. His wife, probably one of the richest women in the world, has raised the level of tax avoidance to the level of an art form. Indeed, so much so that he's even got a green card, your Prime Minister, which means that if it goes belly up in this country, he can go back to the house he owns in Florida and do a runner there. But it doesn't finish there. You've got an MP who says you can cook a meal for 30p. You couldn't turn the gas and the electric on for 30p. And in the last few weeks now, we've gone from the sublime to the ridiculous, where you've got one MP now telling you, because the tomatoes other vegetables have run short, to actually eat turnips. How, you know, as my colleague Councillor North said, the sooner you are out of government in this country, the better.
Councillor Dickinson.
It should be longer term, and I absolutely support that. I also agree we shouldn't have to go with begging bowls. It should be fairly distributed. You shouldn't have to put bids in, spend £200,000 on putting a bid, and then you lose that money because you haven't got the bid. I absolutely agree with that. What gets me is the way that this council always reverts to government instead of answering its own problems. If you go on social media and you actually talk to the people in the street, they're cottoning on. They're absolutely sick of you talking about the government because you don't face your own problems. You've had 45 years in control and the borough is going down and down and down. It is not improving. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Cooney.
I wouldn't speak because I do think Councillor North's response and budget was excellent. But just one or two things. I mean, it's nice to hear that Councillor Oliver Ryan's here, and I do hope. I mean, I know he's not coming back, but I do wish him really well. And I've seen him on Sundays, a TV star nowadays, and he will take a bit about losing a bit of weight. I should imagine he will. but I saw him trying to pull his button, but he was excellent, and you know. So, and it's again here tonight. I've only got up on one or two things. One, let's make it clear. Godley Green at the moment, I know it's going for its public inquiry, is dead, while the road issue is being resolved. So there's not much we can do with that at all. So people can speculate about 2,000, 5,000, whatever. That is going to be reviewed with the bypass. Regarding Ashton Town Centre, Stalybridge or whatever, anywhere else, but certainly Ashton, you know, we are moving with Ashton. That's the reality of it. You know, you're not going to get that money, which we did, and we welcome that. It's a shame, really is a shame, that you're bidding for money you should have got in the first place. I was with some leaders from around the country, and they weren't just all Labour. One authority had spent £600,000 getting a bid together and lost it, didn't get anything. But then again, they weren't from Richmond, were they? You know, that place of such deprivation. But so, you know, and to be fair to Councillor Dickinson and along with us, you've got to change how local government is funded, and it's got to be more on a realistic level that you can plan for the future, not just annually. Are we going to get something this year, next year? I do also want to say that we are tackling it, because I think Stalybridge is a fantastic town centre, and I do know the work that my colleagues are doing in there, and the lobbying they're getting. The police station has been knocked down, and I, as a person who runs up there sometimes, or used to, will be again soon. You come in there with the canal there, and you can see it's offered. It's fantastic. Yeah, we've got to bring that hall back into use, and no one's going to dispute that. You know, you're not telling us something that we don't know. What you can't tell us is where's all the funding come to do it. But we will find it, because there's a lesson we've learned, and you know, reality is that if you close a building, then you need to make sure you're still going in and checking on that building. And then we wouldn't have had the issues that we've had with some of our historic buildings. So, you know, we're aware of that, and it has to be tackled. And I know, if you think you're raising it, just speak to the Stalybridge councillors are on all the time, and quite rightly so, it's their town. I mean, you can go to my own in Drolsden. Anne, Barry and ourselves, we're in the Concord on Friday, again, along with people. People want to see that prosperity, but do you know, there was a programme with Bezos, you know, with Amazon, a documentary on it, and you can see these shops are up against billionaires who are campaigning so that you do all your shopping and everything you do online. So it's hard for the little entrepreneur to open that little shop, but we're going to help them. We're going to try and help them in the town centres, but they are up against this body, and you can see it where there was illegal practices, people wanting to challenge them, how they were being decimated by them. And that's what these little shops, they don't realise that, you know, we all got into buying stuff while COVID was about online, and we haven't come back to there. But so we've got to look at the offer, but we've got to help them shops create that offer, because they're not going to do it themselves. They want to do it, and so we've got to work with them. And one way of doing that is actually looking at how the towns operate in the evening. I remember Manchester, you could go after 5 o'clock, it was dead, and you go there now and you can see it's vibrant. And you can see that exactly in our towns. I was in Denton, having a meal in Denton a few weeks ago, and I was amazed at the food offer in Denton at night and it was packed. So you can see that they are working and they're doing a good job, but it's not going to happen overnight. Ashton, we know we're out to consultation with the public realm. We're disappointed, really hard about Hyde. Do you know, Johnny sent us the reason why Hyde wasn't successful. Staley Bridge wasn't successful. And, well, if you'd have told us that beforehand, we wouldn't have put the bid in. You know, don't tell us, we don't know what we're bidding. Well, put a bid in, and then we're going to tell you why you weren't successful. Well, if you told us what the criteria for the bid is in the first place, we'd have made sure it fit that. And that's unbelievable, isn't it? So now what they're now doing is going around the country saying, yes, we messed up on this levelling up. And the levelling up is our money. It's from the 350 million a week that they're saving by not being in Europe. So it's our money. And it's the alternative, what they're not giving to the EU, they're going to give back. That's what levelling up, Boris Johnson's levelling up was. We're not giving it Europe, we're going to give it to those areas of deprivation. So you've got now Sonny who's saying that, well, no, they shouldn't get them areas of deprivation, shouldn't get it. So, you know, if you really want to do something about it, understand, yes, we are a poor part of the world, the Northwest. You know, as you see Andy Burnham when he talked about how we're comparing us to Greece, and how we're funded, it's unbelievable. But do you know what? It's through our endeavours and ourselves and our work that we have and our commitment that we will still survive. And let's hope, in the last century, 23 years of the last century was a Labour government. The rest of it was a Tory government. That's what we've been battling against. For them little bits, we get a bit of daylight in every period where there's a Labour government in, and we try and do something. Waiting list dropped. Cancer patients were dealt with straight away. You know, you look at all that was going on. Pupils were given money so they could attend the schools in the evening and everything else. So, this budget, it's a shame, because give us a proper funding and give it us over a sustained period, then we'll make it even go further. But what's next year's bid? We'll spend time on next year's bids or whatever. But I've got to say, there has been a turnaround in officers. That's the reality, you know, that's where we are. People have seen that. And people have a right, they want to move on, they don't want to stay here, they want to move on, that's their business. I've not got a problem with that. But what I have got to say is that it doesn't matter whether it's Councillor Warrington, Councillor Ryan, Councillor Quinn, Councillor Oldham, at all times their endeavour is to do best for what is Tameside. I've never done anything other than that, any of them who've led this council. Hopefully we'll do the same, but whether we get the same outcomes, I don't know, but we will not stop trying. And regarding Ashton, Stalybridge, Hyde, Drawsden, Denton, Mosley, Audenshaw, Duckingfield, I think I've named the 9 now, innit? You know? Mosley, I did say Mosley, Longdendale, Broadbottom, Hyde. But, you know, you yourselves are, you've been elected in them areas, and it doesn't matter who's in charge, you will all lobby for your area, and rightly so, along with the public. And the public aren't sick of what we're doing. The public is sick of a government that decided overnight that they're going to make sure mortgage rates are at an unbelievable level. I don't think anyone, I got my new gas and electric bill. Unbelievable. I don't know where, £900. I thought, is that for the year? No, it's for 2 months. It's unbelievable. I mean, well, we turned everything off no matter what. But that's unbelievable, the demand that you're getting. It's unbelievable. So how do you do that? Even if you've got a reasonably paid job, still trying to survive is going to be hard because of that. The bills that you're paying for your fuel, your bills that you're paying for your heating and everything else. And then if you're down at the bottom, it's unbelievable. You know, you can see it every day. There's a program on TV about how people are trying to survive. Do you know what I mean? But we are where we are. But this situation we're in now came about because a Conservative government changed its leader, and I don't know what she was thinking, and it was created the day she came in, passed the budget, and even her own party within a few days said she had to go. But the problem is the consequence of that is still here today. It will be here tomorrow, and it will be in everyone's bill in April. And I hope in May they tell them you've got it wrong, and they vote Labour, and that's how they'll tell this government you've got it wrong, and we're not having you anymore. And well, hope Councillor Ryan as well.
Does any other member wish to speak on the amendment before I ask Councillor Billington to respond? Councillor Anne Holland.
I'd just like to say to the Conservatives, if we had back the 50 million that we've lost every year since we've had a Conservative government and they came into power, we'd be all right. We had more money to spend on social services. We had more money to spend on, we used to have plantings, you know, flowers all over Tameside. We can't afford that anymore. We can't afford people to come and cut the bowling greens. They have to have other people to do it now. We can't provide the services we used to do. And if we had all that money that was wasted and conned from us as taxpayers on PPE by Tory cronies, we might be able to get something done that we want to do. We can't do it out of thin air. And if you read some of the things that I've had in through the post, and I thank you for sending it to me, the Tory areas have got all the say. They're getting the grants that they apply for. We're not getting anything like what other Tory areas are getting. And I do just want to get back to getting the 50 million that they've taken off us each year in cuts. We've had that many cuts, and I'm sorry.
So last chance for you to speak on the amendment. No, I'm going to ask Councillor Billington to respond, and once he finishes speaking, we're going straight to the name vote. Councillor Billington.
So first of all, Councillor Ryan, thank you for coming tonight. I heard that you came here to get your 6-month marking. So the thing is, Oliver, is that the reason why growth is in a mess is because of the time that you ran it. And what I'm proposing is to fix that, because you spent all this money and delivered nothing. Just like children's services, you increase the budget up there, and it... I'll come to that in a minute. I'll come to that in a minute. So, don't interrupt me. So, Councillor Ryan, this council's having to sort out your mess. The taxpayers are having to sort out your mess whilst you're running off to Burnley. You know, on Sunday Politics, you were saying you're a Burnley lad. Really? I'm not, actually. I am not jealous. I'm not jealous at all. I don't want to become an MP. I am very happy being in Stalybridge, serving my community in Stalybridge South. It's the best job in the world. I'll come to you, £50 million, and I don't think it is quite that much every year, but... Well, you need to be a bit more specific. You need to be
Can I ask people to stop interrupting, please? Councillor Holland. Councillor Holland, do you mind not interrupting? Councillor Billington,
I would suggest, Councillor Holland, that you are more specific and factual in your answers next time. But the thing is, Councillor Holland, you talk about services pre-2010 as if it was some panacea of perfection in Tameside. But let's just remember the history of Tameside. We have had some of the worst educational results. We have children's services failing. These are all issues which are compounded years and years and years during a Labour government as well. So you can't say, just because the money's gone down, that these problems have just magically appeared, because they haven't. So it's down to your party and the absolutely shoddy way that this council has been run for 45 years. So I just don't understand how you can sit there and say that as if like this council's absolutely wonderful, because it isn't. On the COVID spending, you go on about all the money wasted. I remember during COVID, you had Labour politicians banging on, we need to spend more money, we need to spend more money, we need more PPE. And it got there. Now, yes, it was a load of rubbish. It was a load of rubbish. And I agree to that. I agree to that. And it was completely wrong. It was completely wrong. and I don't agree to it. But you were there saying that we needed to spend more money. And it's just the hypocrisy of Labour and the typical Captain Hindsight that we see from Sir Keir Starmer. But, Councillor North, what I will say is, you described the Levelling Up Fund and the rounds of bids for that as a beauty contest and that the council has to spend more money on that. On the last round, the government did give you £100,000. That was in Exec Cabinet when Councillor Ryan... Now, if your department, which you're running now, spent more than that, I don't know the exact figures of that, but there was a grant there for that from the government to assist Tameside because they failed the previous one. But what I will say on the Levelling Up bids, and I have said this at previous council meetings, is that the Levelling Up Fund bids for Tameside were absolute garbage. Again, headed up by Councillor Warrington and Councillor Oliver and Bryan. Half of the money was to go on cycle lanes, as if it's going to change and transform jobs and the prosperity of people in Tameside. It isn't. And you wonder why you lose these bids. So I just think you need an absolute reality check on yourselves. And that's all I've got to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the name vote. On the amendments.
Please can you say for? If you are against the amendment, say against, and if you don't wish to vote, please say abstain. Yes.
Yes, I made that clear, Councillor, thank you.
So have I. Affleck. Allen. Billington. Bowden. Bowerman. Boyle. Bray. Chadwick. Choksey. Colborne. Cooney. Cooper. Costello. Dickinson. Drennan. Fairfowl. Feely. Glover.
Against.
Gwynn. Anne Holland. Barry Holland. Jack Homer. Hunchback. Jackson. Jones. Kitchen.
Against.
Lane. McNally. Naylor. Newton. North. Owen. Patel. Patrick. Pearce. Quinn. Reid.
Stephen Holmes here. Oliver Hines here.
Ritchie. Robinson. Roderick. Ryan. Naylor Sharif. Tafeen Sharif.
Against.
Mike Smith. Teresa Smith. Sweeton. Taylor. Ward. Warrington. Welsh. Stephen Homer. That's the vote.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to Councillor North's budget, I'm now asking for speakers on that, please. On the main budget. This is now the substantial portion. Anybody wish to speak on it? Councillor Fairfowl.
Supporting Councillor North's budget. And I just want to congratulate Councillor North as well for the work that's gone into actually putting forward this balanced budget and the team. It has been very, very difficult to actually get these numbers, and the hours that you've all been putting in just to get to this point has been phenomenal, really. I think people probably don't understand hearing comments from the other side there about people, we can still eat out and stuff like that. Well, it's very, very difficult out there. We have more Band A and Band B properties, as Councillor North said, in our communities. We know how difficult it is when we speak to our residents about housing. It is about food, it is about heating. It's actually real out there, and that's what we need to do. I was at an LGA seminar a couple of weeks ago on the children's services, and I was sat next to a guy. One of the authorities you referenced, Jacqueline, in your speech, and it was a council with a Section 114 notice, which is going to put its council tax up to 10%. He said back to me, he said, well, I'm really amazed because I thought there'd be more pushback than there was, but people aren't bothered about paying an extra 10%. I'm thinking, well, this really is about poverty, about where you live, isn't it? And we do everything we can for people in Tameside. And this budget, it does what it does. We'd love to do more. We'd love to have growth. And as Councillor Holland said, we'd love to have the flowers on the streets and things. But I really do congratulate you for what you've done so far. But we are picking up the scraps, and that's what we're doing. Little bits of grants here and there, that's what we've got to do. There's no actual, sort of real money for us to actually plan for, and we just have to work every single day to try and pick up every grant we can. That's all I want to say on the budget. I'm obviously fully supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you.
Councillor Huntbatch.
I'm not allowed. So council, I'm not allowed, am I? I'd like to thank the finance team and the council, my council colleagues responsible for producing this budget report in such difficult circumstances. I'd also like to thank Councillor Billington and the Conservatives for their work on the amendment, for putting that in. When considering my response to this year's budget, I have, as in previous years, considered the funding made available to Tameside Council by the government, so let me get that out of the way. The government has, for the last 13 years, continued to rob councils up and down the country and would rather provide tax relief for the highest earners and permit tax avoidance for huge companies that have benefited at the expense of services for those struggling to survive. They just don't pay their fair share of taxes. I've also supported previous budgets as they've been produced in difficult circumstances and they have to be set legally. I agree with much of this budget report, and it was good to see mention of a commitment to sustainable housing, and I'll be looking for more detail on that. I'd like to signpost the Cabinet and relevant officers to the Lewis model developed by the Green-led Council in East Sussex. They employed only local builders, they pooled the financial resources with neighbouring councils for better deals on materials, and they worked with local colleges to provide relevant training for the installation of ground source heat pumps, etc. I do agree that it's crucial not to dip into the reserve simply to provide services, especially in such a volatile financial climate. What I've also done is I've submitted many questions at full council. Let me just find where I was. And always in the spirit of cooperation and working together for the benefit of residents. As a sole Green councillor, I'm not allowed to submit motions or amendments without the support of members from other parties, which I can't get. Despite the sometimes extensive research I've put into those questions I've submitted to this Labour Council, each and every one has been summarily dismissed. It's almost as if the ruling Labour Council would rather disregard any potential advantage than give credit to an opposition member. I've consulted endocrinologists on the benefits of vitamin D in protecting against respiratory infections prior to the COVID vaccination. Most recently, I relied on my own vast knowledge, and there'll be no false modesty tonight on pesticides and wildflowers. I'm a former senior lecturer in horticulture at Askham Brown Horticultural College in York. one of the top colleges. I've held a pesticide licence since 1989. I went on to teach the qualification and I'm still qualified to do so. I currently run a horticulture-based business. I'm a proud product of Tameside Council, 18 years as a former council gardener and then propagator at our former nursery in Denton. As a sideline, I appreciate the cost savings of using Duckingfield Town Hall rather than the facilities at Garden and Tony Downs' house for these meetings, as it's been heated anyway. But my last question fell quite literally on deaf ears, so I have to ask, if members cannot be heard in this room, shouldn't we be heating that building 5 times a year to facilitate a more inclusive debate? I believe my suggestions could have saved the council many thousands of pounds in costs of resources, chemicals, machinery and equipment, wages for seasonal staff. Surely if cuts to services have to be considered, and unfortunately they do, then removing weeds, which benefit pollinators early and late in the season, and biodiversity generally, would be more acceptable, even appreciated, cuts that could be made. I've already helped and encouraged residents in Waterloo to clear their communal area of weeds and to keep it clear of weeds and litter. Transforming grass verges to wildflower meadows could perhaps justify dipping into reserves for the initial work. I don't know whether that's possible, but the subsequent savings on labour could go back into the reserves.
I thought this was a budget response, not an annual report or an election address.
Shall I continue?
Thank you for that. Yes, we are speaking about the budget, Councillor.
Yeah,
so.
and I'm explaining,
Yes.
I'm explaining my reason for voting against the budget, which is I've provided ideas to cut the budget to save money, so it does apply. If you just let me finish, Liam, we let you finish. 2 cuts a year for wildflower verges versus 14 for lawns. That doesn't take much thinking about to realise how much savings are going to cost on labour. And of course, there are many other benefits, not least popularity with council taxpayers. I have Green Party colleagues across the country who facilitated this, and it's proved popular across the board. So I'm still available to consult for future budgets, but if I vote for this one, I fear my questions will continue to be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak about themselves or the budget? In that case, Councillor North, you can respond.
We've been here quite a while on this. Serious debate on the budget is always right and proper, and I would like to thank everybody who has made comments from all the political parties tonight. I might not have agreed with them all, but this is the place where we do debate these topics. So I'd like to thank them, and I'd like to thank all the staff who have helped and assisted in the preparation of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to a name vote.
If you wish to support the budget, please say for. If you are against the budget, say against. And if you don't wish to vote either way, please say abstain. Affleck. Allen. Billington. Against. Bowden. Bowerman. Boyle. Bray. Chadwick. Choksey. Colborne. Cooney. Cooper. Costello. Dickinson. Drennan. Fairfowl. Feely. Glover. Gwynn. Anne Holland. Barry Holland. Jack Homer. Stephen Homer. Huntback. Jackson. Jones. Kitchen. Lane. McNally. Naylor. Newton. North. Owen. Patel. Patrick. Pearce. Quinn. Reed. Ritchie. Robinson. Roderick. Ryan. Tafeen Sharif. Mike Smith. Teresa Smith. Sweeton. Taylor. Ward. Warrington. Welsh.
Okay. So the majority count in this case, so the budget is approved. So therefore I'm going on to agenda item 9, which is the meeting of the Democratic Process Working Group. Councillor Cooney to move. Councillor Fairfield. Any questions or comments on those minutes? And Councillor?
I think it's just a small typo under the minutes of the previous meeting. It says that the minutes of the working group held on the 29th of November 2023 were accepted, which should be 2022. Ironically, the rest of that minute is about correcting a typo on a previous day, but we'll gloss over that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No. All those are in favour then? Yeah, thank you. Move on to agenda item 10, which is the appointment of the Director of Resources. Councillor Cooney to move.
The appointment of Ashley Hughes as the Director of Resources and Statutory Section 151 Officer with effect from the 3rd of April 2023, and that it be noted that Stuart Fair will continue as Interim Director of Finance and Statutory Section 151 Officer until that date.
Is that seconded? The officer might to stand for a minute so everybody can see who you are, if you don't mind. Welcome to Tameside. So all those in favour? Yeah, thank you. Now move on to agenda item 11, which is the mayoralty. Nominations for Civic Mayor, Councillor Cooney. Is that seconded? Any other proposals? No? All those in favour? So, thank you. Now I'm going to take nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor for 23-24. Councillor Cooney to move.
Chair, I move that Betty Affleck be nominated for election as the Deputy Mayor for the 23-24 municipal year at the annual meeting.
Second motion, Chair.
Any other proposals? No? Are all agreed? Thank you. Congratulations to you both. Agenda item. Agenda item 11 is the arrangements for annual council. That is for noting. Now move on to agenda item 12, questions on the standing order 17.2. We've received none under that. Agenda item 14, urgent items, so there aren't any. That is the end of the meeting. Could you all please stand as the Civic Party leave the chamber?